After a tough Super Bowl loss all the way back in February, the Chiefs are still facing plenty of questions about how long their run at the top will last. Katie Caldwell, Jeff Lloyd back here with you. Jeff, the Chiefs went 15-2 but got blown out on the biggest stage. Is the window closing or is all of this just more offseason noise?
I think the fair thing is to probably not view this as the Kansas City Chiefs window is closing. I think it's more of, their, lap on the pack or the gap between them and the rest of the AFC. I think this is more a credit to some of the other teams in the AFC.
Mm,
Look, the Chiefs, they're just so comfortable in their own skin. They certainly have, a couple of key players who are probably getting to that, questionable age where is there a possibility, maybe of a fall off or, production drop. But I think they find ways to kind of circumnavigate that as, and certainly, this is probably the second most popular podcast that's going to drop here this week. But certainly for the most popular is going to drop. I think and I think with Travis Kelce, I do think, and 2 years ago, I think it was a health question. I really do, because once they got
okay.
to the playoffs, Kelce just all of a sudden seemed on another level. I don't think he necessarily just anything changed. I think maybe he was getting healthier as the year went on. Last year, certainly there were times, but then where the production, wasn't necessarily meeting what the standard was. But then you have that wide receiver room in Kansas City.
Mhm.
Xavier Worthy is an electric player. Rashee Rice, the question is going to be how much time does he get for them this year with an impending suspension, of
Yeah.
course. Other guys within that team, Isaiah Pacheco, has really been a screws and nails type of runner for them, just a battering ram, putting his body, basically, before his best interests, which kind of cost him time last year. But they got a rebirth out of Kareem Hunt, who was really comfortable within that system, when he was
Mhm.
there earlier in his career. And of course, it all comes down to, Patrick Mahomes. And for all that he's accomplished to this point in his career, and we talk about, eighth season, ninth season, whatever it is in the league at this point, he's still not really, anywhere close where we're having a conversation, of, when is the back nine for Patrick Mahomes? Are we closing in on, the last
Mm.
couple of, you know, whatever's, with Patrick Mahomes as far as, oh, maybe that, he's still going to throw for another 200 career touchdown passes, still going to
Exactly.
throw probably another 20 to 25,000 yards in the NFL.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't think the window's closing. I think the competition level in the AFC, and it seems it's been really close the last couple of years of these guys, nipping at the heels of Kansas City. And I think now it's probably more contenders. Certainly the AFC West is contenders. Then of
Yeah.
course you have Buffalo, you have, Baltimore. I don't think Kansas
The
City is
whole
going to have
AFC
a
North.
fifth. Exactly. I don't think Kansas City is going to have a 15-2 regular season this year.
Yeah.
But I also don't think it's going to take 15 wins to take the AFC this year. I think you just have teams that are going to, there's basically going to be a little cannibalism where, 13 might be the number just because you have teams that are going to have to battle against each other. And I think they're all so good. Everybody's going to get their opportunity. So the window's closing. No, not necessarily. But, I do think the AFC as a whole is more talented and certainly deeper than it has been. And it doesn't seem like it's changing anytime soon.
Oh, I totally agree. When Andy Reid was asked about it, he said he's proud of how his team handled the close games. But is that resilience or was that a sign that they were kind of barely holding it all together last year? Like, it felt like after every single Chiefs game, I walked away going, how did they do that yet again? Like, they were felt like they were losing and then on the very last play it would turn around. Like, it just feels like there was some sort of like dark magic surrounding them that last season. What does that tell you as a whole? Like, do you think, I guess my question is, are they still built to handle that pressure? Or did that Super Bowl loss reveal deeper issues there? Their season was so interesting last year to me.
I think the thing is, and what comes from it is, just being there. I mean, the Chiefs have been
Yeah.
the hunted in the AFC. It's, got to be the better part of 6, 7 seasons now, where they've kind of been top dog and everybody's kind of shooting for them.
Mhm.
Certainly, there's been times where luck factors in, either a generous flag or a generous no call. And everybody gets so upset about it, but usually,
Yeah, that
the
fans
better
were
teams.
super normal
Yep.
about every
Of
time.
course, they always take it so well.
Always are. Yeah.
And I think, and everybody, "Oh, it always seems like the Chiefs get the" no, 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 no. These are when the Chiefs play, usually all of us as a whole are watching the game together. Nobody was saying, "Oh, well, the Colts-Titans game, that was a terrible call." Oh, I'm sorry.
Such a
That
good
was the 5th
point.
game that was the 5th game on my dialogue today, you know what I'm saying? I don't think I was tuning into that one per se. And of course, it comes with being games in the 4:25 time slot. It comes with all the primetime games that
Mhm.
Kansas City plays where everybody's eyes are on those matchups. And again, it just comes down from having been there. And it's not even just in the regular season, but I mean, in Super Bowls, in playoff games, you get yourself into the mindset of, it truly is a 60-minute game. And I think that's really, there's been field goals that have won games for Kansas City. There's been long drives from Patrick Mahomes, or the defense creates a crucial turnover.
Mhm.
Or one of the things that I always like to talk about is, established pass rushers in big situations, or all of a sudden Chris Jones blows up a drive with 3:07 on the clock and forces, the opposing team into a situation of, are we going for it on 4th 11, or do I got to punt it and pray somehow, some way we can get the Chiefs to go 3 and out and I burn all my timeouts and we get one more shot at it. They're the hunted, and
Mhm.
they've learned how to protect themselves basically out in the wild for all this time. Um, and that was even the thing going into the Super Bowl, because I think so many people just wanted the Eagles to win because they are like, maybe getting tired of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Feels like the
I lo
Tom Brady era where we were just
Of
hoping
course.
for anything except Tom Brady and
Yep.
the Patriots.
How are they gonna pull it out this time? And, oh, it's not gonna happen again, the
Yeah.
28-3 against Atlanta. But for me, I think, and this is certainly, I was guilty of it at the time, probably not appreciating the Patriots in the Tom Brady era as much as it needed to be appreciated, just as a true follower of the sport. And I kinda think that's kinda where we're at right now with Kansas City, is just the overall appreciation of the greatness, of the success,
Mhm.
and, how did you pull it out of the hat again this time? And, that's just what makes them who they are. They are, they're the top in the league. They're the standard in the league for a reason.
Mhm.
And, they're, until they lose, you know, and don't make it to the Super Bowl this year, or lose again in the Super Bowl, I mean, no disrespect to the Philadelphia Eagles, but, I still have the Chiefs as the top franchise in the NFL right now. What
Okay.
the Eagles have done is great, but it just fails in comparison to the consistency and the standard that the Kansas City Chiefs have been.
When I think about their greatness, when I think about their core, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, and then probably Travis Kelce all come to mind for me. Let's get into Kelce right now because obviously, as you said, there was a podcast in the headlines right now. So he's still such a big part of that core, a big part of that team. But he admits that his production has dipped while juggling off field projects. I don't know if anybody knows what he's up to, from like hosting SNL to a very high profile relationship with Taylor Swift. In a recent GQ story, he was really honest about how some of these opportunities may have affected his game. Given all that, do you think he can still perform at an elite level, or is this the beginning of a downturn? Because even with him saying that, I look at how many years he's done this, I look at his age and the position he plays, and I'm still pretty blown away that he's performing at the level that he is, but he has admitted that maybe his production has dipped because of the off field opportunities.
Well, and first things first, you don't fault anybody who's, kind of looking out for what's going to be the rest of their life, not just their
I
playing career.
agree.
I
Yeah.
mean, we had two gentlemen in Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson who had strong intentions of getting themselves to the tri-state area, not just to play for the New York Giants, but they wanted
Hmm.
to be in a position where they could start to further what is going to be their post-career life. And, for Kelsey, and I think that's one of the biggest things where anybody who's trying to use it as a negative has probably got to be kidding themselves. Travis Kelce could walk away today and in the next calendar year probably make more money than what the Kansas City Chiefs are going to pay him this year.
Probably.
It would be that simple. I'm sure
Yep.
TV is probably something that Kelsey is going to dabble in as well, along with probably having the top podcast in all of America. Um, doesn't need a dime, obviously. He could be the, world's greatest, probably has the world's greatest sugar mama right now if he wanted to. Um, but I think it's the drive for it. It really is. And, you think about this guy and, when he was going through the draft process, there were a lot of red flags because of maturity.
Mhm.
He kinda had like a little bit of the Gronk mentality. It was never used against Gronk, but it was kind of necessarily used against Kelce. Um, but then, just got to Kansas City. And at the time, he was just obviously a young kid from Cleveland Heights who just, was developing into one of the best tight ends. And I don't think anybody realized he was going to become one of the best tight ends that ever played in the history of the league. Also, I think ideally, if you're Kansas City, you're gonna kinda maybe dial it back a little bit. I don't think Travis Kelce needs to get 12 to 13 targets at this stage of his career. They certainly have enough talent on that offense that they can find a way to, distribute those targets, equally to
Mhm.
some other parts of the offense. Um, and look, it can't be easy to be Travis Kelce. Like, you look at his brother, and obviously every time we turn around, we see Jason Kelce doing something else.
Yeah.
Well, that's kinda easy to do when you don't have to have practice every day. You don't have to spend, every waking second in the off season getting your body in peak position to be able to do what your
That's
main
true.
gig is. Um, so, I mean, I think for Travis, there's gotta be a balance, certainly. And let's be honest, this is 2 years now. This is now the 3rd season that he will be in where there has been a relationship with Taylor Swift.
Yep.
Um, so I think probably between the 2 of them, and it probably doesn't hurt to have somebody who is so physically in demand like Taylor Swift is in your life as you are trying to figure out balance. I'm sure that is probably something that, helps Travis. It probably, leads to some awkward conversations, when they're 4 continents away from each other or whatever, other things that are going on. But, you wanna find that fine line between being the professional at your job and giving it what it is due, but also there is nothing wrong with, dabbling into other interests and certainly, looking out for whatever phase of your career is going to come next.